In this presentation, I will go over some of the basics on what to expect and what to look for when you are changing from on-demand medication filling to a once-a-month cycle fill. Some definitions of things that not only I'll be using in this presentation, but that you may also hear in the future just when dealing with the medications, such as on demand. So that is what you're currently doing. That is anytime a medication is getting low, or you see that a resident needs a refill, then you are calling, you're faxing. If you have an EMR, then you're messaging the pharmacy to be able to refill that medication. Cycle fill is pharmacy initiated. So that means that once everything has been calculated, which I'll get to in a moment, and short filled to get you on that cycle, then every 30 days you're going to receive a new shipment for an entire month's supply for everyone that we service in that facility. So it's no longer going to be a resident getting a month's supply today and a different resident getting a month's supply in a week. Everything will be all together on the same day. That coincides with the cycle start date. It's not always the first of the month. It can be the 17th. It can be the 4th. It can be the first of the month. It rotates, and it's not always going to be on the exact same day each month because it is a rolling 30 days. So like February, that has 28 or 29 days. If you have a month that has 31, then that'll just adjust the start date by a day or two in the next following months. Cycled medications. So not everything is cycled. And cycled medications, those are the pills, capsules, tablets, caplets, all the various names for these pill items that are taken routinely. So these are not PRN medications, which rolls into the non-cycled meds. Excuse me. They are they're medications that are taken every day on a consistent time, whether that's every morning, every bedtime. And they are also not controlled medications. So then rolling into the non-cycled medications, that's going to be your bulk items, so your bottles, your nebulizer solutions. That's going to be any controlled medications, and that is for a couple of reasons. This doesn't mean that a resident's controlled medications can't be due at the same time and be filled at the same time. The pharmacy just is not going to initiate that. And like I said, there are a couple of reasons for that that can be discussed at another time. But also PRN, or as needed medications, because just as it states, those are as needed. So those are not something that the resident is taking all of the time. Short-term use, such as antibiotics or short-term steroids, and then hospice medications. Those do not get cycled. We can most certainly fill them. They just have to be initiated. Then there is the short cycle or short fill. You may hear that as well in the beginning here, as well as moving forward if there's any kind of corrections or new medications. So this is the process of only filling enough medication to get that resident to the next start date. So it is not going to be a full, if you're using blister cards, it is not going to be a full 30-day card. Instead, it may be 5 tablets, and that will get you to, if your start date's the 15th, say, just for sake of numbers, today is the 10th, so you'll get 5 tablets today, as well as the next 30 days. So your short fill, or the short cycle, is that 5-day count that gets you to the start of the 15th. So it's usually only a small amount of tablets, but it can be as much as up to 29, just to get you to that next month. a term that is not often used, but it can be important to understand it, is our resync. So this is a day where if any new medications have been added to residents who are on sync, if there have been any spit outs or dropped pills that have been reported to us. So side note, make sure that you let us know if there have been any spits or any drops of pills. Then we'll resync to get you those couple of tablets or to get you that short fill for the new medication to get you to that next start date. And then at the next cycle date is when you'll receive the full amount. PRN, these are just the as-needed medications, so they're not taken consistently. They're things like milk of magnesia, as needed, Tylenol, as needed, Tums, Mucinex D, Mucinex DM, as needed. These are certainly medications that can be taken routinely, so don't confuse it with that, but it is the as needed portion of the medication instructions. So what should you expect when converting and starting that cycle? So the very beginning is a pharmacy member will be coming into your facility. They will be going to your med cart or med carts, depending how your facility is set up, and they will be doing a physical count of all residents that we handle, all of their medications that can be cycled. So they're not counting your bulk items, they're not counting your large bottles, they're not counting your nebulizer solutions, they're not counting your controls, so they do not need access and will not need access to the narcotics drawer. They will not be counting any kind of PRN medications, and they'll be just going through a full list. They'll come prepared with a list of every resident that we service, as well as their med list that coincides with that resident. During this med count, you do not need to remain present at the med cart and watch them the entire time that pharmacy member is there. Feel free to definitely come in and check at any point. But you don't need to worry about blocking off a chunk of time that interferes with your duties to sit there and just overwatch them. The pharmacy member may have questions, so just be mindful of that. So they may need to ask about a medication that appears to be discontinued, or if you have a large surplus of a resident's medications, they just may ask for some clarification. That way they can have the quantity properly adjusted or properly discontinued. After the cart count or the cart audit, the pharmacy member is then going to return to the pharmacy. So then each count that was done for the residents will then be calculated to match that resident and that particular medication out to the cycle start date. So this is where the short fills come in. So not only are we working to have an entire month's supply, but we need to ensure that you and your residents have enough medication from today until the start of the new cycle. So if the resident has run out today, we are going to make sure that there is a new fill with enough medication to get to, going from the previous example, to get from the 10th to the 15th, so you'll receive 5, and then you would also at the same time receive that next 30-day supply. So this is again where the short fill comes in. You may also receive less than 30 days for residents. So if you have a resident that has, let's just say like 39 tablets, well, they have more than is needed, so they're not going to receive anything. And then you're going to have another resident that has 25 tablets. Well, now they only need 10 tablets to be able to get them from today to the 15th plus the next 30 days. So that would be a total of 35 tablets. So now we will only be sending them 10, which may seem confusing at first, and especially when you receive your first cycle, it may be worrisome that a resident only has a partial card and nothing else. But once that's matched with what is in the cart, it should be enough to get through till the end of that cycle, in addition to the few days in between the count and the cycle start date. So how is this going to change how you pass medications? Overall, it should become easier for you. This is because you'll no longer have to keep track of medications that need refilled, or if you're getting low on something, trying to keep those notes that you have to call in a refill, as well as does the resident even have refills? So not only are you looking if you need to call in, fax, message through EMR, a refill, but then there's also the kind of background added concern of, does the resident even have the refills? Do I need to call it in? Do I need to contact their physician to get new refills? All of that is now being taken off of your plate for the cycled medications. Your cart should have enough for the entire cycle. So it shouldn't be a worry of who has medications. Oh shoot, I forgot to order this last night and now they're completely out. There shouldn't be that. Other than that, you should be passing medications the exact same way. So your med cart should be able to remain well maintained. You're not going to have a bunch of surplus. You shouldn't have shortages of other routine meds. You should be able to keep your med carts nice and clean, and very crisp in what is in them, as well as their appearance within them. It may seem silly, but keeping that med cart clean and reduced of surplus, as well as medications that you don't know if there's 1 tablet in the package or 30 tablets in the package. If you keep all of that well maintained within this consistent cycle, that's going to be even easier for you to complete your job well, as well as stay out of trouble when it comes to medication cart audits from the state, or any other kind of licensing facility. So to wrap this up, there are just a couple of frequently asked questions that we receive, not only as far as cycle fill, but also just as the pharmacy altogether. So the first one being, why on earth did I receive so many blister cards in my order? So this is kind of twofold. The first being, we have to remember what we talked about earlier with the short fills. So you may have some residents that receive 2 blister cards for each medication they're on, and that is because of the month supply in addition to that short fill to get them to that cycle start date. The second being, you are currently not used to receiving your entire facility's month supply for all of your residents. So it just may seem like a lot, but you have to just keep in mind that this is the entire month supply for all of the residents that we service. Why did I receive a medication for a resident that has been discharged from the facility or is now deceased? So this would simply be because we didn't know. So we just really ask that anytime there is a resident that has been discharged, or if there's a resident that is now deceased, that you let the pharmacy know right away. This is really important because we tend to be working on the refills for residents 1-2 weeks before we're actually going to be getting that out the door and to you. So the sooner we know, the sooner we can make those accommodations and properly mark the resident either discharged or deceased in our system. In the event we do send medications for a resident that is no longer there, those can be returned to the pharmacy for us to handle it appropriately, and if possible refund those medications, but they'll just be handled, on a case-by-case basis of how it should be. Are there any kind of customizations? As far as actually filling the medications, there are a few. So we can, if the entire facility agrees upon it, we can decide to remove that time of day sticker. And that is those stickers that are the yellow, green, orange, blue, breakfast, noon, evening, and bedtime. That goes in the corner of the blister card. We can also choose, or you can also choose to have us only send one PRN card of a medication or bottle versus one for each time of day that it is prescribed. And if there are any other kind of requests or anything else you'd like to see us try to do, give us a suggestion, let us know, and we will try our best to accommodate that. Will I still need to contact the pharmacy for refills? You should not need to contact the pharmacy to request a refill. So you shouldn't have to, again, going back to the beginning of this, you shouldn't have to keep tabs if a resident is due. They should have enough until the end of your cycle. As far as actually requesting a prescription refill, we will also take care of that, except for those certain circumstances where some physicians will not speak to us as the pharmacy, or if they won't authorize any more refills because they need to see the resident, then our staff will reach out to you to help aid in that matter. And that pretty much wraps up this training. Please let us know if there are any other questions, any other concerns that you have, and have a great rest of your day.